We do have beliefs that feel good to us because those beliefs are based on past experiences, and those emotions keep us attached to the belief chemically. It's in our biology. And we tend to think neurologically and feel chemically within experiences then that are connected to the past. So when our beliefs are challenged, we hold on to the emotion, like, Jesus had a brother, what? Mm-hmm. The person in our work who, I'll use a simple example, has a very, very difficult marriage. And her marriage falls apart, her husband was abusive, and lived by the stress hormones for an extended period of time. Of course, all her energy is going for some threat in her external environment. She has no energy in her internal environment for growth and repair. No energy for long-term building projects. The body is in vigilance. It's always anxious. She's anticipating something bad happening all the time, and she's got food allergies to everything. She's allergic to her environment. She comes to the event, she does the work, it takes her 3 months, and all of a sudden, in one event, she has a breakthrough, and she's eating anything she wants. Now, she's changed her belief about her past because she's no longer saying, I am this way because of my relationship with my husband. See, because when you say, I am this way because I had an abusive father, I am this way because I had a difficult marriage, I am this way because I got fired from my job, what you're saying is, I haven't changed since that event emotionally. And so now you're viewing your future through the lens of the past. When you overcome that emotional state, a memory without the emotional charge is called wisdom. Now you're ready to create a new future, because if you're still attached to the emotion, you're still attached to the past, and you can't create a future. So all of a sudden now, the person has a transformation. She has a shift. She knows that she's liberated from that anxiety. She feels it. And as a result of it, in a matter of moments, Ben, her biology reorganizes to a new mind. And now she's eating, I'm watching her eat pizza, I'm watching her eat a hamburger, she's laughing, and it's sustained. But that's not the end. Because if she's healed herself, then the next question is, I understand the physics and biology of what I've done. Is it possible if I heal myself that I can heal another person? Now my belief is being challenged again. Now I'm challenging my current belief. Is it possible? Well, I don't know. I haven't had the experience yet, but if I'm thinking it and I understand the semantic, philosophical, theoretical, intellectual information, can I initiate it? Can I apply it? Can I personalize it? Can I demonstrate it? Can I modify my behavior in some way based on my last experience to have a more evolved experience? And that more evolved experience will be outside of my beliefs currently, but I understand the science, and if I can get my behaviors to match my intentions, and I've done it to myself, and quantum physics says is that consciousness is non-local, will help. If I can create a coherent signature here, I should be able to do it in another person. So then when the experience occurs, now I have more circuitry in my brain that's enriched, I have a new feeling in my body, and I feel like a healer. I already feel like a healer because I've healed myself, but let me see if I can heal someone else. I'm going to bring up that emotion, and it may take me a few times. And I'm telling you, that woman, we did a coherent session where we're healing another person, and the person laying down there was a woman from London who had exposure to a bacteria in India 20 years ago who had food allergies that couldn't overcome that bacteria. And I watched this woman synchronistically, unbeknownst to the woman laying down there, lay a coherent energy in that person's body, and that woman was healed. I had dinner with her in London, and she was eating salmon and rice and everything else, and she said, I don't know what happened, but I got healed. Now that person who did the healing, her belief was challenged, and because she had the experience, she asked the greater question. So the greater question then led to the next experience, but it's not enough to do it once. You got to be able to repeat that experience. You got to make it scientific. Right. You got to make it a skill. And this is where people stop. Like they have the one experience and say, I'm a healer. No. The fact that you have the experience means you should be able to reproduce that. So then you keep pushing the boundaries of your beliefs. That's called evolution. And so people reach a certain point in their belief systems and they stop. And so I think the problem with a lot of people in the spiritual community is they confuse insight with belief. Like, oh, you know, I have anxiety, so the reason I have anxiety because of a chemical imbalance in my brain. That's what my doctor told me. And I get panic attacks, and I got a panic attack on a plane, and I'm afraid of planes and crowded places. And so now that you know that you have a chemical imbalance in your brain, does it heal your anxiety? No. So then they go to the psychologist, they go to their friend says, well, it's not a hardware problem, it's not circuits and molecules and chemicals. It's a software problem. You know, your father was overbearing, he was a perfectionist, and it's a program, and you know, it's from your past. And the person now has the insight that their father was overbearing. Does it heal the anxiety? But they will see that as a belief, like my father was overbearing. What they're really saying is, I am this way because of this past experience. So then they go to the psychic, and the psychic says you were burned at the stake in Carcassonne in the 1500s, you're a charismatic Christian, the memory's burned in your soul. Now that you know that you were a charismatic Christian from the 1500s, a Cathar, a Templar, does it heal your anxiety? No. So then you go to the astrologer, and she says, you know, Mercury's in retrograde, don't leave the house for 6 months. It's the reason why the way you are. And so they develop beliefs that are within their emotional acceptance. And so then they build more beliefs within those emotions, which means I still don't want to change. The insight doesn't change anything, because people will only accept, believe, and surrender to beliefs or thoughts that are equal to their emotional state, and they'll program their autonomic nervous system into that destiny. So then you get a diagnosis from a doctor, it creates the emotion of fear or desperation. You'll only accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to those emotional states. Until you change your emotional state, is it possible for you then to begin to accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to a new emotional state and bring up the emotion ahead of the experience? Now we're talking about going against conditioning. I have certain beliefs right now that I honestly am questioning that I still think are limited beliefs. But in order for me to change those beliefs, I'm going to have to come out of my resting state, have to step out into the unknown, and really check to see and execute in a very different way. Now, to build on that model, then it's going to require 1 foot in the practical world and 1 foot in the mysterious world. Because I can't control all the events that happen in my life, but I can certainly make choices that are going to bring me closer to those experiences. Now, I also know from experience that when I'm living by the hormones of stress and I'm living in survival, that you and I and everybody else is always going to try to control the outcome, to try to force the outcome, to try to get in the way, try to analyze when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. Now, when that occurs, we're really bad. We're competitive, we're manipulative, we'll hold on to things, we're deceitful, we're greedy, because that's what those chemicals do. So we're always trying to control and force the outcome because, in a sense, we feel separate from something greater. We feel like we're matter trying to change matter. We feel like we're vibrating at the same speed as everything else, and so we have to get what we want, means we have to go and get it. And so then people start mixing spiritual principles with that phenomenon, right? So then that's not what I'm talking about, because I'm talking about if you're able to understand that when you're living by the hormones of stress, that your senses are heightened and that you're a materialist trying to define reality. If you can't see it, feel it, taste it, smell it, it doesn't exist, and you're getting ready for something bad to happen and be prepared to protect yourself, and that's how most people live, then everybody's doing that. Everybody's matter trying to change matter, and sooner or later we're going to bump into each other and there's going to be sparks, right? So then, is it possible then that instead of being defined as a body, living in an environment in a particular time, that if you were to close your eyes and disconnect from the external environment, to sit your body down and to transcend time and to become nobody? You have the biological machinery to do this, to become no one. You're not a face, you're not a man, you're not a documentary filmmaker, you're not your past, you're not your future, you're not a husband, you're not your body, you're not your emotions, you're not your habits, you're not the predictable future or the familiar past. You're pure consciousness. Now, if you are going to heal your body by thought alone, if you are going to create some event in your external environment by thought alone, and if you are going to transcend time by thought alone, then you have to become thought alone.
I think this particular time in history, people are waking up to possibilities, and you have to admit that when you become aware of something that didn't exist before, there's a change in consciousness. And so I think people, because of information at this current time in history, are just more informed, and because they're more informed, they're more conscious of possibilities. And so when you take a group of people and you give them sound scientific information, and as you said, science to me is the contemporary language of mysticism, that science can demystify the mystical. And if you can combine a quantum model of reality that says that somehow you're connected to everything, that your thoughts have an effect on the nature of reality, and if mind is an important element of that, then we better study and understand what mind is. So if you can combine some neuroscience, some neuroendocrinology, with some psychoneuroimmunology, the mind-body connection, and epigenetics that says that you're not doomed by your genes to be a certain way your entire life, that you could actually change your gene expression. So if you can take those ideals, those different models of science, and come up with something that represents a new model of being, and people can philosophically, theoretically, and intellectually understand it to the point where they can repeat it. It's important for them to repeat it, because if they can't repeat it, it's not wired in their brain. So if they can explain the what and the why and understand that model, we know that then the how gets a little bit easier. So if you can then put people in the practical experience of taking that information, that philosophical information, and making it practical, initiating it, applying it, personalizing it, demonstrating in some way, a certain percentage of people will actually do it properly, and they'll experience some type of transformation, some type of change. The experience then will enrich their brain circuitry and produce a feeling, and that feeling then teaches the body to understand what the mind is intellectually understood. So when we started out on this journey, it was primarily philosophical. It was, you could probably heal your body. Yeah, you could probably create a better life. But when we started actually seeing people change their health to all kinds of great measures, that's when I knew that it was time that we had to start taking measurements and looking to see what was going on in the brain. What was going on in the heart, in the gene expression, in the immune system, and in cellular biology, cellular health. And so we assembled a team of scientists and researchers to study common people, not anybody that was different, that had 40 years of meditation experience or was in a monastery or had any intellectual training. We wanted to just focus on common people. And so the research and the way we teach what we teach is from looking at what works and what doesn't work. We've looked at thousands and thousands and thousands of brains. We've looked at thousands and thousands and thousands of different hearts. So we've studied all kinds of gene expressions. We've looked to see what it is that's actually built. How do we take it from the brain to the body and all the way down to the cell? And what is that model? And so we have great evidence now in our scientific research about human potential. And we have great evidence and testimony in so many people who have actually applied what this formula of understanding of change could be. And we started seeing them standing up saying, my cancer's gone, my MS is gone, my lupus is gone, my Parkinson's is gone, I was paralyzed, now I can lift my arm. I was blind, I could see. I was deaf, I could hear. You start seeing some really dramatic testimony, and that testimony is the truth. That is that person is an example of the truth. And when people stand on the stage in our workshops and they tell their story of how they heal themselves, I just witnessed one 2 days ago at a workshop I was just at, and I watched the audience, and there wasn't a person moving. everybody was just fixed on this person telling the story of how she healed herself, and it was beautiful. And she had all the scans, all the results, and everything. And it's a 4-minute mile. Mm-hmm. You break that level of consciousness, back to your question. And so you pierce through a level of unconsciousness to a greater level of consciousness. Now, there's evidence in front of you. It's possible, a greater possibility, a greater consciousness. Someone left a footprint for someone else to step into. And so we have evidence and testimony of evidence in scientific measurements, and evidence becomes the loudest voice. And so what we noticed is that if we could teach people really how to get beyond themselves, and what would, because that's what you asked, what does that mean? And we saw people's brains get worse when they were analyzing their life and trying to figure out their life, that they were driving their brain into higher stress levels and higher arousal states and making their brain more incoherent. We saw that analysis isn't going to do anything, that we have to get beyond the analytical mind. So we started figuring out ways to build an understanding of a model that we could teach people, that they could, by volition, be able to change their brain waves and learn how to do that. And what was it that helped them do that? And once they got beyond their conscious mind into their subconscious mind, then could they rewrite a program? Could they rewrite a behavior? Could they change some fundamental aspect of themselves? And if it was no longer about them healing, but it was more about whatever it was that the program was in the way of them healing, that's what it became about. They became more interested in the process of change than, and they understood that the side effect of that would be a change in their health, which is pretty much what we see over and over again. So it became something different, and we were able to teach it based on what we studied. And we know so many things about how the brain and body work, and now there's a movement taking place, and there's enough people doing it that it is becoming a little bit more normal, which is this is a great time for me. Absolutely. It's one of the things that I did discover as a result of talking to numerous people that really experienced profound transformation, is that people think, they come to the work for a lot of reasons. They may want to come for health, they may want to come for wealth, they want to come for success or the mystical, or just to be a better person. But what we found out over time is what everybody really wants is wholeness. That it's the process of becoming that really makes the difference. And when people start really connecting to the emotions of their future before they happen, before that experience happens, they feel like they're already in the experience. They feel like it's already happened, and that's an important element for the process of creation, because otherwise we're creating from separation or lack. And when people start managing their intentional thoughts, when they manage their emotional states, when they trade survival and limiting emotions for elevated emotions, and you teach them a practical tool on how to get back into a state of more wholeness, they're starting to demonstrate a level of self-love. And we see what that looks like in the heart. It gets highly organized and highly coherent. We see it, what it happens in the brain. It gets aroused, and the arousal is not fear, and the arousal is not pain, and the arousal is not aggression. The arousal is this state of ecstasy, or this state of bliss, and it's coming from within the person. Now, this is a important point, because now they realize that there's nothing out there that they thought that they want could make them feel the way they're feeling when they start managing their inner world, right? So you start seeing that people start feeling like they're so whole they no longer want anything. And that tends to be the paradox of how their dreams actually happen, because now they're no longer creating from separation or polarity. In fact, they're creating from wholeness, and wholeness means that it already has happened on a biological level for people. So learning how to create from wholeness then creates this crazy thing where you feel so amazing. You feel so in love with life. You feel so grateful to be alive that you want other people to feel the way you feel. And the only way you can do that is to give. And the act of giving actually creates more of that feeling, which creates more of the chemicals for you to want to give. And all of a sudden you start creating a species of people that are really interested in caring for one another and being kind to one another and loving one another and supporting one another and informing one another and healing one another. It's just what the empathy of the species really is about, you know? So by the end of our week longs, many people we can see on their physiological measurements are very, very coherent and very orderly, and they're filled with love. They're filled with a love of life. They're filled with a joy for existence. They're filled with just the gratitude of being alive. And so if we could teach people a model of healing, and we can show them that there's research that shows that it's not matter that's emitting a field of energy. It's really that the field of energy is creating matter. So if you change the field, you change the hologram in three-dimensional reality. So we build a model of understanding that then takes the person's work from the entire week and builds a bigger model of application. But instead of it having it be about their wealth or about their new relationship or their new career, it's about someone else. And now they are going to give life to another person's life, and they're going to love another person into life. And they understand that they would have to get beyond their associations to everything physical and known. They practice that all week. They've learned how to create from the field instead of from matter. They're going to have to open their heart, because once energy makes it to the heart, it begins to produce a non-local effect, a connecting effect. It also is a frequency of more wholeness and oneness, which it takes to heal. And they're going to build a bigger model and apply all of that to another person. And they're going to have it be about them.